The wind howled outside the small, run-down shelter where Mara and her young daughter Lena huddled together trying to stay warm. The snow had been falling for hours, and the cold seemed to seep into every crack and crevice of the tiny space. Mara's breath came out in visible puffs, each one a reminder of just how bitterly cold it was. Mara wrapped her arms around her daughter, pulling the thin, tattered blanket tighter around both of them. The small fire in the corner had long since died out, and with nothing else to keep them warm, they were left to face the freezing night. The child, barely 4 years old, shivered in her mother's arms, her tiny body weak from hunger and cold. Mara knew that Lena was barely holding on. The little girl had been sick for days, and Mara had nothing to give her but her love and the warmth of her own body. There was no food, no medicine, no hope left. Mara's heart ached as she looked down at her daughter, who was too weak to even cry anymore. The life in her eyes was fading, and Mara felt powerless. How could she save Lena when there was nothing left? They were alone in this cold, desolate place, far from any town or city, with no one to help. Tears welled up in Mara's eyes as she gently stroked Lena's hair. "I'm sorry, my sweet girl," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." The wind outside began to howl louder, as if it too was mourning their fate. Mara closed her eyes, unable to hold back the sobs any longer. She had done all she could. She had fought for every scrap of food, every moment of warmth, but there was nothing left. She had tried to keep hope alive, but now she was ready to let go. Mara closed her eyes, resting her head on the cold, hard floor, holding Lena tightly against her chest. The warmth from her body was all she had left to offer her child. The cold was too much to bear, and the exhaustion from the endless struggle weighed heavily on her. She knew the end was near. "I wish I could have done more," Mara thought as her eyes fluttered shut. She could hear Lena's faint breaths, the soft sound of her tiny chest rising and falling. She knew her little girl wouldn't survive much longer in this cold. The end would come soon, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. With one last deep breath, Mara held Lena close, wishing for peace for her daughter. Maybe, just maybe, the cold would take them both peacefully and they would no longer have to suffer. She could feel herself slipping away, the exhaustion and cold pulling her into a deep sleep. She was ready for it, ready to finally close her eyes and let go. And just as Mara's thoughts began to fade, something strange happened. She thought she heard a sound, faint at first, like footsteps crunching in the snow. She blinked, confused. Who could be out there? Who would be foolish enough to brave the storm? The sound grew louder, closer. Someone was coming. Mara's heart skipped a beat, a flicker of hope suddenly igniting within her. Could it be someone who could help? Was there still a chance? She strained her ears, trying to make sense of the noise. It wasn't the wind or the storm, it was the sound of footsteps. But the snow outside was thick, and anyone walking through it should have been making much more noise. This person moved quietly, almost silently, as if they were used to moving through snow and ice. Mara slowly shifted Lena in her arms, her heartbeat quickening. She needed to be sure. She slowly lifted her head, glancing toward the entrance of the shelter, her eyes squinting in the dim light. Through the small gap in the wall, she could just make out a figure, a tall shadow moving toward them. The figure was tall, but it wasn't the shape of any human Mara had ever seen. Mara's breath hitched in her chest. Fear and hope collided within her. Who was this? What did they want? The figure stepped closer, blocking out the wind that had been howling through the cracks of the shelter. It felt warmer, almost as if the cold itself was being pushed away. The figure's silhouette became clearer, and Mara's eyes widened. It was a man, but he didn't look like anyone she had ever seen before. His face was hidden by a dark hood, and his body was wrapped in something that glowed faintly like soft, shimmering armor. His presence was unlike anything she had ever felt. A strange, almost electric warmth emanated from him, filling the room. Mara's heart raced as the figure reached the entrance of the shelter, and she instinctively pulled Lena closer to her. Was this a trick, a trap? Or was this the help she had been praying for? The man's eyes gleamed with an unusual light as he stepped inside. He didn't speak, but there was an unmistakable calmness to his movements. Slowly, he knelt beside Mara and Lena, his hands extending toward them. As he touched Lena's cold forehead, a strange warmth spread from his hands like a gentle current of energy flowing into the child's body. Mara gasped, her eyes widening. This was no ordinary man. This was something different. The warmth spread throughout her own body, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Mara felt relief. Real, comforting relief. But who was this man? How was he able to do this? "Who are you?" Mara whispered, her voice barely audible as she held Lena close, still unsure of whether this was a dream or reality. The man didn't answer right away. He simply looked at her with calm, knowing eyes, as if he understood everything in that moment. And for the first time in so long, Mara felt something she had thought she would never feel again: hope. Mara's heart raced as the stranger continued to kneel beside her, his warm hand still resting on Lena's forehead. It was as if the bitter cold that had filled the room was being slowly pushed out, replaced by a comforting heat that seemed to come from the very air itself. But as the warmth spread through her, a question gnawed at Mara's mind. Who is this man? The stranger's presence was both calming and unsettling. His features were hidden beneath a dark hood, and the glowing armor he wore was unlike anything Mara had ever seen. It shimmered faintly, the edges of his suit catching the dim light of the shelter, as though the man wasn't entirely of this world. He moved with a quiet confidence, his every motion deliberate, as if he were accustomed to dealing with situations like this, helping, fixing, saving. "Who are you?" Mara finally asked, her voice shaky from both the lingering fear and the sudden surge of warmth in her body. The man didn't respond right away. Instead, his glowing eyes turned toward her, and for a long moment they just stared at one another. It was an unsettling gaze, full of knowing, like he could see through her, the pain, the exhaustion, the hopelessness. "My name is Jackson," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I come from far away. I've been sent to help." "Help?" Mara repeated, still unable to process the situation. Her mind was clouded with confusion. She had spent the last hours, maybe days, ready to give up, to close her eyes and end the suffering. And now here he was, offering warmth, comfort, but no explanation. "Yes," Jackson answered, still kneeling beside Lena. "But not just with warmth. There is much more I need to explain. But first I must ask you, do you trust me?" Mara stared at him, uncertainty and fear battling in her chest. She looked down at Lena, her sickly little girl still too weak to even speak, let alone understand the strange man who had appeared from nowhere. She had no reason to trust him. He could be anyone. He could have been sent by the same cruel fate that had brought them to this cold, desolate place. But at the same time, the warmth was undeniable. It wasn't just the heat from the fire that had long since gone out. It was something far deeper, almost as if he was filling the very air around them with a kind of life. "I don't know," Mara whispered, feeling the vulnerability of the moment. You're not from here, are you?" "No," Jackson replied, his eyes softening slightly. I'm not from your world at all." Mara's breath caught in her throat. "Not from here?" What was he saying? He couldn't be serious. No one was from anywhere other than Earth. At least that's what she had always believed. Jackson seemed to sense her confusion, for he added quickly, "I'm not a danger to you. I've come to help you, to help your daughter, and I'm here to protect you both from a much larger threat." Mara shook her head, her mind struggling to process everything. She had no time to think of larger threats. All that mattered was her child, her sick child who was barely hanging on. "Please," she pleaded, "just help her. Help Lena, she's so sick. There's nothing I can do. I've tried everything, please." Jackson's gaze softened, his glowing eyes locking with hers. "I understand," he said gently, "but there's more at stake here than just your daughter's survival. I am here because your world is in danger. Something is coming, something that could destroy everything. But with your help, we can stop it." Mara didn't understand. Her body ached with exhaustion, her mind clouded with the unbearable weight of her daughter's illness. She didn't care about some far-off threat. All she wanted was for Lena to be healthy again, for the pain to stop. "Please just help her," Mara begged again, her voice breaking. She reached out, grabbing Jackson's arm as if her desperate plea might make him understand the gravity of her situation. Jackson didn't pull away, though his expression remained unreadable. He studied her for a moment before nodding slowly. "I will help her," he said, his voice firm and calm. "But you need to understand that there is much more going on here than you realize. I've been watching Earth for some time, studying its inhabitants, its people. There is a war coming, Mara. A war that you and your daughter will be a part of, whether you know it or not." Mara's head spun and she felt a chill creep into her heart. War? What was he talking about? War? Mara repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean? I just want my daughter to live. I know, Jackson said, his tone softening, and I promise you she will. But what you don't know is that your world has been chosen by those who seek to conquer and destroy. And if we do not stop them, it will be too late for everyone. The words hit Mara like a punch in the gut. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she felt lightheaded, as if the weight of it all was too much to bear. Conquer? Destroy? She had never heard such words before, not in her life. It all sounded so impossible. Jackson must have sensed her distress because he reached out and touched her shoulder, his touch strangely reassuring. Mara, I know this is a lot to take in, but you and Lena, you have a part to play in this. You may not understand yet, but you will. We have no time to waste. Mara's eyes flicked back to Lena, who was now breathing more evenly, her pale skin no longer as cold as it had been. There was something about the way Jackson spoke, the way he promised to help, that made her feel as though she could trust him, if only a little. I'm here to help you, Jackson repeated softly, his glowing eyes steady and unyielding. But I need you to trust me, Mara. You don't have to fight alone. For the first time in a long while, Mara felt a spark of hope deep within her. This stranger, this mysterious man who had appeared out of nowhere, was offering her something more than just warmth. He was offering her a way out, a chance to save her daughter and maybe even save the world. The question now was, could she trust him? Would he really help? Or was this just another cruel illusion? Mara's hands trembled as she cradled her daughter, Lena, still wrapped tightly in the thin blanket. The warmth that had spread through her body when Jackson touched Lena was unlike anything she had ever felt, like the sun breaking through the coldest storm. It wasn't just the heat. It was a strange energy that seemed to fill her with a sense of calm and clarity she hadn't known for so long. She looked up at Jackson, who stood silently beside them. His eyes were glowing faintly in the dim light of the shelter, his presence still so calming yet impossibly otherworldly. How was this possible? She had been on the brink of giving up, ready to close her eyes and let the cold claim them both. But now, in the span of moments, everything had changed. Jackson, Mara whispered, her voice still shaky. How did you do that? What are you? Jackson didn't immediately answer. Instead, he walked over to the corner of the shelter, where he had placed a small metallic device. He lifted it up, revealing a small glowing orb, no bigger than the size of a child's fist. The soft, pulsating light coming from it was soothing, almost hypnotic. This, he said, his voice calm but filled with urgency, is the key to saving your daughter and you. He turned back to her, eyes serious. But it's more than just warmth. It's a gift, a technology that comes from my people. Mara's breath hitched as she watched him approach, holding the glowing orb carefully in his hands. A part of her wanted to reach out and grab it, but another part was hesitant, unsure if she should trust him. She had been through so much already, had been lied to, had been let down by the world. Could she trust this man? Could she trust this strange, glowing device? I don't understand, Mara said quietly, her voice shaking with the weight of her emotions. Why would you help us? We're just nobody. Why risk your life for us? Jackson paused for a moment, studying her with those glowing eyes that seemed to see everything. Then he stepped forward, his presence becoming overwhelming yet strangely comforting. You're not nobody, Mara, he said softly. You are far more than you think. Your world is on the brink of something much bigger than you can imagine. I came here because of your daughter, because of you. Mara's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? How could Lena be special? Jackson's expression softened and he knelt down in front of her. Lena is more than just a child in need. She is a key, a symbol of a larger fate that is yet to unfold. The world, your world, is connected to much more than you realize, and in order to protect it, I need you both to survive. Mara's chest tightened as she tried to make sense of his words. A key, a symbol? Everything was moving so fast and she could barely keep up. She glanced at Lena, whose face had begun to show a slight warmth, the color returning to her cheeks. The child, still asleep, looked peaceful, but Mara couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important going on, something that involved her daughter. Her and this stranger, Jackson continued. I've seen many worlds, but none like yours. Earth is special, and there are forces coming that will try to destroy everything you know. That's why I've been sent. To stop them. To prepare your world for the battle that's coming. But I cannot do it alone. Mara took a deep breath, trying to process what Jackson was saying. She had always felt so small, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But now, hearing him speak about battles and worlds, she felt as if she were standing on the edge of something huge, something she didn't understand. What is this? Device? Mara asked, her voice still shaking with disbelief. This is called an alarisphere, Jackson said, holding up the glowing orb. It's a piece of advanced technology from my people. It's a healing tool, but it's more than that. It's a link to something far greater. Something that could change the course of your world's future. He gently placed the orb in Mara's hands, and she felt the immediate warmth spread through her skin. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, soothing yet powerful. It felt as though it was alive, pulsing with energy. She could almost feel the orb's rhythm, a steady beat that matched the thump of her heart. This will heal Lena, Jackson explained, his voice steady. It will restore her strength, remove the sickness from her body, and give her the energy she needs to survive. But more than that, it will prepare her for what's to come. Your daughter holds something inside her that can help save this world. But she needs this device to unlock it. Mara stared at the orb in her hands, the weight of Jackson's words sinking in. Could it really be true? Could Lena, her little girl who had been on the verge of death, really be the key to something so important? The questions kept flooding her mind, each one more overwhelming than the last. Jackson continued, but you must understand, this isn't just about Lena. This is about you. Too, Mara, you're stronger than you think, and you have the power to help not just your daughter, but the entire planet. Together, you and Lena will be part of something bigger than survival. You will be part of saving everything. Mara's hands shook as she held the orb, the warmth now spreading through her entire body. She could feel a faint pulse of energy inside it, a kind of connection that resonated deep within her. It was almost as if she could sense the power inside the device, as though it were waiting for her to unlock its potential. Will it really work? Mara asked, her voice thick with emotion. Will this really save Lena? Will she be all right? Jackson nodded solemnly. It will. But this is just the beginning. There's much more you need to understand. Lena's health, your safety. None of it will matter if we don't stop what's coming. Mara looked at the orb one last time, her heart heavy with the weight of everything that was happening. She had no idea what the future held, but in that moment she realized that whatever it was, she and Lena would face it together, stronger, more connected than ever before. I'll do whatever it takes, Mara said, her voice firm. For Lena, for us. Jackson smiled, a rare expression of warmth on his face. Good, because the battle for your world is just beginning. The warmth from the alarisphere continued to flow through Mara's body, and though the heat was comforting, it only intensified her growing sense of unease. Jackson's words echoed in her mind. The battle for your world is just beginning. It was difficult for her to grasp, but something deep inside told her that whatever this man said was more than just a strange tale. She had already seen the impossible, an alien with glowing armor, a life-saving device that could heal her daughter, and the promise of something greater at stake. But she wasn't ready for what was coming next. Lena, now resting peacefully in Mara's arms, had finally started to regain some color in her cheeks. Her shallow breaths had become deeper, more even. It was as if the sickness that had taken hold of her was slowly, almost imperceptibly, being pushed out by the energy Jackson had transferred through the orb. But Mara's eyes still carried the fear of a mother who had already lost too much. What did Jackson mean when he said Lena was the key? What could her daughter possibly have inside her that would save the world? Jackson stood across from them, his glowing eyes never leaving Mara's face. He knew she had questions, knew she was struggling to comprehend everything, and yet there was nothing but patience in his demeanor. "Mara," he said gently, his voice quiet but insistent, "you have to understand something. Earth is not just a planet. It's connected to a vast network of worlds, far beyond what humans have ever known or imagined. Your planet is part of something much bigger, something ancient." Mara blinked, trying to process the weight of his words. A network of worlds? She had always known there were mysteries beyond the horizon, but never in her wildest dreams did she imagine they were connected to the fate of the entire planet. "Your people," Jackson continued, "have no idea of the power within your world. But the balance is fragile, and there are forces, others, who seek to destroy it, to harness that power for themselves. I was sent here to prevent that, to protect Earth from those who would use it for darker purposes." Mara felt her chest tighten. What kind of forces? And why is Lena, why is she involved? She's just a child. Jackson paused, his face unreadable, and for a moment Mara wondered if he was hesitant to share the truth. But when he spoke again, his voice was steady, unwavering. "Lena is not just any child. She is the descendant of an ancient lineage, one that has been hidden for generations, a lineage that holds the key to stopping the forces that are coming. Your daughter's DNA, her very being, is linked to something powerful, something that has been locked away for centuries." Mara's breath caught in her throat. "A lineage? What do you mean? I don't understand. How is this even possible?" "Lena's bloodline is connected to the Guardians," Jackson explained, his eyes darkening with the weight of his words. "They were an ancient race that once protected Earth from those who sought to control its power. The Guardians were thought to be gone, their legacy lost. But their bloodline, the one that runs through Lena, still holds the key to their strength." Mara shook her head, feeling as if the ground beneath her was slowly crumbling away. "Guardians' strength? I'm just a mother, Jackson. I'm not some warrior." Jackson's expression softened, and he knelt in front of her, his hand gently resting on the Alara sphere. The orb glowed brighter, its pulse quickening as if responding to his touch. "You are more than you think, Mara," he said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "The Guardians were protectors, but they were also human. They were people who lived among Earth's population, blending in, hidden in plain sight. Your bloodline traces back to them, and with that legacy comes strength. The strength to fight, to protect, and to make a difference." Mara's mind was spinning. She had been a simple woman, doing her best to survive, to care for her daughter in a world that seemed bent on breaking her. But now, in a matter of hours, everything she thought she knew was turned upside down. "A guardian? Me? What do you need me to do?" Mara asked, her voice trembling. "I'm just trying to keep Lena alive. I don't know anything about whatever this is." "You don't have to know everything," Jackson reassured her, his voice calm but firm. "But Lena's survival is just the beginning. The Alara sphere has already begun unlocking her potential. As her strength grows, so will hers and yours. There is a force rising that threatens the very fabric of your planet, and you both are key to stopping it." Mara looked down at her daughter, still peaceful in her arms. Lena was no longer the frail, sickly child she had been only hours ago. Her color was restored, her breathing steady. But now there was something else. A change in the air, a shift that Mara couldn't explain. "Your daughter will grow in strength," Jackson continued. "And as she does, her connection to the Guardians will unlock further. But to face the coming threat, you will need to prepare her. You both will need to train, to become more than just survivors. You will need to fight." Mara's heart sank. Fight? She had no idea how to fight. She was a mother, not a soldier. The thought of her daughter, Barely more than a baby fighting against whatever forces Jackson spoke of was unfathomable. But as she looked at Lena, her heart softened with a fierce resolve. Whatever this was, whatever Jackson had set in motion, she would do whatever it took to protect her daughter. "I'll do whatever it takes," Mara said softly, her voice more determined than she had felt in years. "I don't care about the rest of the world. I only care about keeping Lena safe. If she's part of this, whatever it is, then I'll help her. I'll fight. I'll learn." Jackson's expression softened, a rare, approving smile forming on his face. "That's what I needed to hear, Mara. The strength was always within you. It's time you see it for yourself." The weight of the moment settled over Mara, and although the unknown stretched before her like an impossible road, one thing was certain: she would not face it alone. Lena, the child she had once thought she would lose, was now part of something far greater, and together they would fight. The fire crackled softly in the corner of the shelter, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The warmth from the Alara sphere had filled the small room, pushing out the cold that had gripped Mara and Lena for so long. As the night wore on, the storm outside continued to rage, but inside, there was a newfound peace, a peace that felt almost impossible given everything they had been through. Mara sat on the floor, Lena resting in her lap, her daughter now more alert, her once pale face full of color and life. It was as though the life force within her had been restored, and with it came something else, a strange energy that Mara couldn't quite understand but knew was powerful. Lena's eyes had begun to glimmer with a spark of something beyond mere health. She was stronger. She was different. "Do you feel it too?" Mara whispered, almost to herself. She wasn't sure if she meant the warmth from the sphere, or if she was speaking about the new sense of purpose that was filling her chest. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't alone in her struggles. The weight of the world no longer felt as heavy. Jackson, who had been standing by the window keeping watch over the storm, turned his attention to Mara. His glowing eyes seemed to soften as he stepped closer. "Yes," he said quietly. "It's the connection. The bond between you two has always been there. But now, with the sphere unlocking Lena's potential, you're both more attuned to it. You're not just mother and daughter anymore. You're allies in something far greater." Mara looked at Lena, who now gazed up at her with wide, innocent eyes. There was something there, something that hadn't been present before. The sickly, frail child who had been struggling to survive was now awake in a way that felt extraordinary. Lena's eyes seemed to shimmer with something new, something powerful. "Lena," Mara asked softly, her voice tentative, unsure of how to approach her daughter. "How do you feel?" Lena blinked up at her, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I feel better, Mama. I'm not cold anymore. I'm not tired." Her voice was light, but there was an undeniable strength in it. She shifted in her mother's arms, and Mara could feel the warmth radiating from her. It wasn't just the warmth of the sphere. It was something more, something alive just beneath the surface. Mara's heart swelled with relief, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this change than just recovery. Lena was not the same. She was stronger than before, and there was an energy around her that made Mara's skin tingle. It wasn't just the healing, it was the feeling of something awakening inside her daughter. "What is happening to her?" Mara asked Jackson, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson walked closer, kneeling in front of them. "She's starting to awaken to her true potential. The Alara sphere has unlocked the latent abilities within her bloodline, the bloodline of the Guardians." Mara's brow furrowed. "But she's only a child. How could this—" "Her body is still young," Jackson interrupted, his voice gentle but filled with a sense of urgency. "But her mind is beginning to understand the strength that lies dormant inside her. It's not just about power, Mara, it's about connection. The Guardians were protectors, and that protection was not just physical. It was a deep bond with the very essence of Earth itself. Lena has the ability to connect with that essence, to channel it, to defend the world." Mara's mind raced as she tried to absorb his words. The child who had been nothing more than a fragile soul clinging to life she wasn't just her daughter anymore. She was part of something ancient, part of a legacy that Mara couldn't even begin to comprehend. "And what about me?" Mara asked, her voice tinged with both fear and curiosity. "You said we both had a part to play, but I'm not like Lena. I don't have any of this power." Jackson's eyes softened and he reached out to place a hand on her shoulder. "You do have power, Mara, more than you realize. You're the protector. You will help guide Lena. Teach her how to control this power. You will be her anchor. You will be the one who helps her stay grounded when the power overwhelms her. Mara's breath hitched. Grounded? How could she be the anchor? She was just a woman, a mother, fragile, tired, and lost. She had no training, no strength, no knowledge of how to help Lena face whatever was coming. You're more than that, Jackson said, as if reading her thoughts. You are stronger than you think. Your love for Lena, it's what will keep her focused, keep her connected to this world. You are the human element in all of this. You will help guide her through the darkness ahead. Mara stared at him, still unsure. She felt so small, so insignificant in the face of what was being asked of her. But as she looked at Lena, something inside her stirred. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something much greater. A mission, a purpose far beyond what she could have ever imagined. Lena's small hand reached up, gently touching her mother's cheek. Her eyes, filled with innocence, seemed to be filled with something else now. Something wise, something old. She smiled softly at Mara. Don't be scared, Mama, Lena whispered, her voice steady. We'll protect each other. You'll see. We're stronger together. Mara's chest tightened with emotion. She had always promised to protect Lena, to keep her safe no matter what. But now, for the first time in a long while, she realized that maybe Lena wasn't the only one who needed protecting. Perhaps in this strange new world they would protect each other. I'll protect you, Mara whispered, her voice firm with a new resolve. I'll do whatever it takes. Jackson nodded in approval, standing up. You're both ready. The path ahead won't be easy, but you're not alone. You never will be. The power of the Guardians is within you now, Mara. And Lena has her role to play. Together you can face what's coming. As Jackson turned toward the window once again, his gaze fixed on the storm outside, Mara looked down at Lena, her daughter, the key to a world she hadn't known existed. With the bond between them stronger than ever, Mara felt a surge of determination rise within her. They had no choice now but to face whatever was coming, and she would not let fear hold her back. Lena's power was awakening, and so was her own. The wind outside howled, rattling the frail shelter's walls, but inside, the warmth from the Alara sphere flickered gently, casting long shadows across the small, dim room. The storm had not let up, and neither had the unease that gnawed at Mara's mind. She could feel something stirring, an unknown presence creeping closer, though the snow outside showed no sign of anyone approaching. It was as if the very air around her had shifted, thickened with an almost imperceptible tension. Lena, who had been resting in her arms, had started to stir, her tiny hand reaching up as if sensing something beyond her mother's grasp. The girl's eyes fluttered open, now full of life, her bright gaze meeting Mara's with a deep, unfathomable understanding. It was as if Lena could see something Mara couldn't. Mama, Lena whispered softly, her voice unusually clear and steady. They're coming. Mara froze, her heart skipping a beat. She had been trying to push aside the growing sense of dread in her chest, but Lena's words made her fear all too real. Who, Lena? Who's coming? Lena didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the window, her small brow furrowing with concern. The tension in the room seemed to rise as her gaze locked on something unseen, the air growing thicker by the second. Jackson, who had been standing in the corner, suddenly stepped forward, his expression grim. He looked out the window too, his glowing eyes scanning the darkness beyond the shelter. Mara noticed his stance was alert, every muscle taut, every movement precise. He wasn't just a man. He was something more, something prepared for what was to come. They've found us, Jackson said quietly, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. I knew they wouldn't stay away for long. Mara's pulse quickened. Who? What do you mean? Jackson's gaze hardened, his face a mask of determination. The ones I've been sent to stop. The ones who will destroy Earth if they're not stopped. Mara's breath caught in her throat. She had thought they had more time, that the peace they had found in the shelter, surrounded by warmth and the promise of something greater, would last longer. But now the reality hit her hard. The peace was a lie. The storm outside wasn't the only danger closing in on them. Mara stood, cradling Lena in her arms. She could feel the weight of the unknown pressing in, but she didn't have time to question it. Something was coming. Something dark and dangerous. Who are they? Mara asked, her voice tight with fear. They're called the Varos, Jackson replied, his voice low like he was speaking of an ancient enemy. An alien race bent on domination. They've been hunting for the Guardian's bloodline for centuries. They know that Earth is the key to their plans, and they'll stop at nothing to harness the power within your daughter. Mara's heart pounded in her chest. And they're coming here. To us? Jackson nodded grimly. They know Lena is the last living descendant of the Guardians. They've been tracking her, tracking us. And now they've found us. They're not just after the Alarasphere. They want the power that runs through Lena's blood. The words hung heavy in the air, thick with fear and uncertainty. Mara's mind raced. The Varos? She had never heard of such creatures. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were coming and they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. What do we do? Mara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She wanted to be strong for Lena, but inside she was crumbling. The fear was too much. Jackson's eyes softened with understanding, but his voice remained firm. We fight. We stand and protect what's ours, and we don't let them take Lena. Lena, still nestled in her mother's arms, looked up at Jackson, her eyes wide with a strange, ancient knowledge. I'm not scared, Mama, she said softly. We can fight them together. Mara's heart twisted at her daughter's words. How could such a young child, her sweet, innocent girl, speak of fighting with such certainty? But then she looked into Lena's eyes, and for the first time, she saw something more than just a child. Lena had changed. The power inside her had awakened, and with it came a confidence, a strength Mara hadn't expected. Lena wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a warrior in her own right. Jackson nodded in approval, his eyes glinting with respect. She's ready. And so are you. Mara swallowed hard, fighting the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't a fighter. She had spent her life surviving, but never fighting. She had always been weak, just a mother trying to keep her child safe. Now everything was different. The world was no longer just about survival. It was about protection, and if she had to fight to protect Lena, then that was what she would do. Jackson turned to the window, his hand reaching up to touch the glass. They'll be here soon, he said, his voice a quiet, solemn warning. We need to prepare. Mara stood there for a moment, still holding Lena in her arms, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing in on them from all sides. But in that moment, something clicked inside her. Her daughter, her little Lena, had been through so much already. And now it was time for them both to stand, to face whatever came next together. Tell me what to do, Mara said, her voice steady despite the fear swirling in her chest. Jackson nodded. Stay close. When the Varos arrive, I'll need you to use the Alarasphere. Its power will protect you, but you must stay connected to it. Don't let go. Lena, too, she will be the key. Her power will help amplify the sphere's strength. We need to fight them together. The storm outside intensified, its howl now joined by a deep rumbling sound. Mara felt a chill run down her spine. Something was coming, something dangerous. But they weren't alone anymore. They were connected. Mother, daughter, and Jackson. Together they would face whatever the Varos had in store. Together they would fight for Earth. The storm outside raged with a fury that matched the growing sense of dread within the shelter. Mara's heart raced as she held Lena close, the Alarasphere pulsating gently in her hands. The warmth radiating from the sphere had become their only comfort, its glowing light a beacon in the darkness of their unknown future.